Philippines, but also in Asia, the University of the East. He was employed with the United States Veterans Administration as messenger. And because of his dedication and hard work, he was promoted as benefits counselor, the only non-American that held such a high position in the U.S. federal office. He finished his law course in 1978 on top of his class and passed the bar examination of the same year with a passing grade of 83.6, almost landing in the top 10. Also, in recognition to his achievement, the UE Alumni Association awarded him as the most outstanding jubilarian, and his name was installed in the Hall of Fame. After passing the bar, he went solo practice, specializing on election laws. Ms. Solita Canlas Bonsod, a respected journalist, wrote that our commencement speaker is the most competent and honest election lawyer. Another respected journalist had said that our commencement speaker would have been the best chairman of the Commission on Election had he accepted the offer of President Arroyo. Lastly, our commencement speaker is blessed by God because he shares his blessing together with his wife. They are very active with their foundation, Mission Guided by Mary, sending poor but deserving students to school, paying for their tuition fees, food, and transportation allowances. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinct privilege to present to you. As President Garcia said, it takes a handsome lawyer to introduce another handsome lawyer. The Ulirang Ama Awardee, Attorney Romulo Macalintal.
Please be seated. The story had been told that one day the Pope came upon a construction site where 3 people were working. The Pope asked the first man, "What are you doing, young man?" The man, without any emotion at all, replied, "Sir, I am mixing cement powder." Then the Pope asked the second man, "What are you doing, young man?" The man merely shrugged his shoulder and replied, "Sir, I am mixing cement powder to build a wall." Then the Pope approached the third man, who was also mixing cement powder, and asked him, "What are you doing, young man?" The man stood up, smiled to the Pope, and looking up at the sky, replied with pride, "Sir, I am building a cathedral." Dr. Esther Garcia, President and Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Linda Santiago, Chancellor, Manila Campus, and all other officers of the University of the East, members of the faculty, parents, and relatives and friends of the graduates, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The story I just told you has been echoed and re-echoed in various motivational seminars and events for young people like our graduates today. The story serves as a motivation, an inspiration, and a challenge for you to think bigger dreams, to aspire to reach the top of your career, and to build your future on a superior foundation. 3 workers doing practically the same job, but each with a different attitude and outlook on what they are doing. But one has a better vision of his future, and that is what you should emulate. I want you to be cathedral builders and not merely cement mixers. In a word, if you are asked today what you are doing at this very moment, don't just say, I am attending our commencement exercises. Tell the entire world that you are building your future. For commencement means to start a new beginning. And today, I face that great and enormous task and responsibility to give you the inspiration and motivation to be cathedral builders. And from my opening remarks alone, as well as the introduction that my family and I are actively involved in church activities, then you can expect that several portions of my message will have God's compassion and mercy as the centerpiece of my talk. Our President and Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Esther Garcia, described me in her invitation as a person worthy of emulation and respect by our university's younger generation, who may learn from my experiences and insights as you prepare to establish also a niche in your chosen career. She was practically asking me to tell you the story of my life. Baka abutin po tayo ng isang linggo, hindi pa matapos ang kwento ng buhay ko. Levity aside, I compare this occasion to the miracle of planting a seed on fertile soil. As the seed grows into a plant and blooms, so shall my message hopefully impart to you the tiny spark of inspiration that will blossom into a majestic dream. And believe me, my friends, the honor is mine to be your commencement speaker today, for I will always cherish the opportunity to interact with young people like you, graduates, and also to my fellow senior citizens. Palakpakan po natin ang ating mga senior citizens. Marami na ho tayong ipinaglalaban para sa ating mga senior citizens. At kayong mga kabataan, tandaan ninyo, mahalin ninyo ang mga senior citizens. Kasi balang araw, tatanda din kayo. As a graduate of this great institution of learning, I just cannot miss the chance to bring back the past when, just like you, I was full of aspirations and was looking for an inspiration that could lead me to a better life and endeavor. Indeed, a great and enormous task for me to serve as an inspiration to the hundreds of graduating students from the graduate school, the colleges of law, dentistry, and business administration of the Manila campus. And by the way, every time I mention dentistry as a profession, I always am reminded by the fact that dentists and lawyers have something in common. You know why? Well, a lawyer would ask a witness to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. A dentist assures his patient that he will pull the tooth, the whole tooth, and nothing but the tooth. And now back to our program. Yeah. Yes, my dear friends, the time has come for you to dream bigger dreams, for you to face the real challenges of and in life. And to achieve these dreams, you need to think big and differently. As I said, thinking big is to dream of bigger dreams. Just like that young man who enjoys the job he is doing, for he was full of confidence and had a very optimistic vision in life. Have faith, have courage, have enthusiasm in the face of some difficulties or disappointments. Use your eyes and your minds to imagine brighter things, for your eyes should focus and see yourselves as victors and not losers. For sure, the vision of our university in achieving excellence in education has given confidence to all its students and to the parents of our graduates. The valuable experience and the precious knowledge they acquired, as well as the culture of honesty, integrity, and competence they have developed in this school, will forever be a lasting treasure which the graduates will use when they embark to meet bigger challenges or venture on more aggressive endeavors. And if my life story could really give you an inspiration to start aspiring for bigger dreams and ambitions, let me start by saying, as already been previously introduced, that I passed the bar examinations as a working student. Trabaho sa umaga, aral sa gabi, at kung minsan, naglalaba pa. In my younger years as an elementary student, I used to sell or peddle pakwan or watermelon inside the public market of Lipa City. Slices of watermelon placed in a palanggana or in a bilao with plastic cover, and on top of my voice, I would shout inside the public market of Lipa City, "Hey, pakwan! Hey, pakwan!" But every time now that I think of the scene or event of my life, every time I recall those days when I was only 10 or 11 years old shouting, "Hey, pakwan!" I realized that even God has a sense of humor too. Why? Because never did it occur in my youthful mind that someday I would be a lawyer and would have a client whose name, when pronounced, sounds similar to the word pakwan. And of course, I refer to Senator Manny Pacman Pacquiao. Di ba? Si Pacman at si Boy Pakwan. It sounds like a good movie title. Don't you think so? But modesty aside, peddling these pieces of watermelon gave me the virtue of loving my parents. For at such a very tender age, it gave me pride and pleasure to give all my earnings to my mother. A 20 centavo earning at the time may not be that much, but I could feel it meant a lot for my mother. Perhaps it was because of such parental orientation that even when I started working after graduating from high school, and while still a bachelor, I gave all my earnings to my mother, still sealed in envelope. I just lived on a weekly allowance from her. And I developed this attitude even when I got married. From my mother, all my earnings now go directly to my wife. And I just live on a weekly allowance from her. And why am I doing this? Because I believe in the principle that marriage is a matter of give and take. The man gives and the woman takes. Now, the truth of the matter is, I see no reason why a man or I should be handling our finances. Hindi naman ako sanay na maraming pera sa bulsa. And for sure, my wife knows better how to handle the financial matters of our family. I would also admonish you to respect and love your fellow men, even your enemies. I always believe in the scripture that admonishes us to love our enemies. Even Pope John Paul II, in his January 1, 2005 message for the world of peace said, "The inner logic of Christian love, which in the gospel is the living source of moral goodness, leads even to the love of one's enemies." Quoting from the scripture, the late great Pope said, "If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink." Yes, I always feel confident I have fulfilled and complied with the Lord's commandment to love my enemy as God loves me. In 1995, I handled the election case in Batangas where I asked the judge handling the case to inhibit himself for some valid reasons. But instead of acting on my motion, the judge ordered me to pay a fine of 100,000 pesos for alleged moral damages he suffered by reason of my motion. The judge even sent a copy of his order to the bar confidant office of the Supreme Court to form part of my record as a lawyer. You know, I brought the matter to the Supreme Court. I complained against the judge for grave abuse of power. And after several months, the court rendered a decision reversing the order of the judge and dismissing the judge for gross ignorance of the law with forfeiture of his retirement benefits and perpetual disqualification from holding public office. Kaya kayo mga lawyers, tandaan nyo yan ha, pagka meron kayong grave abuse of power, baka matanggal kayo sa trabaho. You know, at the time, that judge was the executive judge of Batangas, and he was about to retire in 2 years' time. And almost after 3 months, a decision was, after 3 months that the decision was rendered by the Supreme Court, the judge came to my office and he asked for my apology. You know, as a true Christian, I embraced him and I accepted his apology and I forgave him. Pero meron pa palang request si judge sa akin. He showed me a letter which he was requesting me to sign. The letter was addressed to the Supreme Court saying, among others, that I have already forgiven him and that the decision be reconsidered, meaning I would ask the Supreme Court to reinstate his retirement benefits. Matapos niya akong parusahan, narito ngayon siya at parang ako mag-aabogado sa kanya. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? I did not ask what I should do. I asked myself, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? Yun po ang tanong. Yes, my friends, confronted with such a very challenging situation, you make God the center of your life, and you will never go wrong. And so I told the judge, Judge, mahina po ang inyong sulat. Baguhin po natin at palakasin natin ang inyong argumento. I said this because I myself could not believe that the decision against the judge would be that harsh or so severe. The judge was already 68 years old. He was about to retire after 2 years, and his action affected me all alone. There was no graft and corruption, and so I amended the letter, wherein I told the Supreme Court, I have forgiven him, and I considered the penalty to be so excessive. I told the Supreme Court that I do not have any objection if his retirement benefits would be reinstated and that he be paid in full. So after almost a year, the court issued a resolution saying, Attorney Macalintal, your request is denied and no further pleadings will be entertained since our decision is already final and executory. But because I felt I had that moral obligation to defend this judge whom I already started helping, I pursued this case before the Supreme Court without even his knowledge. I filed several pleadings asking for judicial clemency for the judge by citing some cases decided by the Supreme Court where mere fines or suspensions were imposed against some erring judges with similar or identical cases. I asked the Supreme Court for similar treatment on the case of the said judge, that the mere suspension and fine might suffice, and surely not dismissal from service and forfeiture of retirement benefits. It was a long and tedious process to the point that the Supreme Court practically warned me not to file similar pleadings or else. But sometime in 2005, after almost 10 years, a similar case was decided by the Supreme Court where a certain judge whose retirement benefits were likewise forfeited was granted judicial clemency on ground of compassionate justice. Please, thank you. Thank you very much. I will remember you when I'm in paradise. Because when I was thirsty, you gave me drink. Yeah. So, saan na ba ako? Nawawala. Ako'y nauuhaw. You know, when we had the 7 last words, I was assigned in our chapel to deliver a short message on ako'y nauuhaw. Tamang-tama ako, ibigay mo sa akin yan. Okay. Okay na yan, thank you. Okay, thank you. So, sometime in 2005, after almost 10 years, I said a similar case was decided by the Supreme Court, where a judge who had similar case, who was also dismissed for gross ignorance of the law, was given judicial clemency on ground of compassionate justice. The decision said that justice without compassion is no justice at all. And so I immediately revived the case of the judge I was helping and asked that the decision be applied to him on ground also of compassionate justice. And after waiting for almost 3 months, the Supreme Court issued a resolution granting my motion and directing the payment of the retirement benefits of the said judge. He could not be reinstated anymore because he was already more than 70 years old at the time. You know, I didn't even know if the judge knew what I had done for him. For I know that when you give to the needy, you do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And I thought that was the end of my story with this judge. But after almost 2 years, or sometime in 2007, I received an invitation from the family of this judge inviting me as a guest of honor on his 75th birthday. So, nag-birthday siya, I was one of his honored guests. And I accepted the invitation, and to make a long story short, we live happily ever after, as his entire family acknowledged the fact that I was not, after all, an enemy, but a trusted Christian friend. Thank you. You know, our friendship did not end there. Later, I stood as one of the sponsors during the wedding of his daughter. And you might want to see the case entitled Makalintal versus Te, a 1995 decision of the Supreme Court. But the epilogue is no longer there. The drama after the decision is not written in that decision. For sure, this story is one for our legal ethics. And I hope this will serve as an inspiration not only to our graduates aspiring to be lawyers, but for those pursuing any other career or profession. May it serve as a reminder that in everything we do, it is not only a matter of winning our cause, but a matter of winning the heart and respect of our fellow men. Yes, I know, you graduates, we are warriors, di ba? We are warriors. But remember, even deep inside our armor, this warrior is a child. Meaning, we still have our loving hearts to guide us in the fulfillment and in compliance with the Lord's commandment to love our enemies as God loved us. I was likewise invited by our university as your commencement speaker because according to Dr. Garcia, I have exemplified the highest standard of a private practitioner. As I pondered on this statement, I was reminded of the advice aired by Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno to the lawyers who attended the March 17 convention of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. Chief Justice Sereno said and counseled the lawyers to do something noble, something good, something righteous, and something different, and that we should be guided by our lawyer's oath, which carries the values of fidelity, commitment, and integrity. In this regard, I remember a very famous personality who ran for mayor of a city in Metro Manila. 3 days before the election, he engaged Talagang isasama ko ito sa paradise. You know the story of that tooth thief, di ba? It only shows how compassionate and merciful God is. Sabi nung isang magnakaw doon, Panginoon, huwag mo akong kalilimutan pag ikaw ay nasa paraiso na. Pero sabi ng Panginoon sa kanya, ngayon pa man isinasama na kita sa paraiso. See, you just request that you be remembered, but siya isasama pa. Isasama kita sa aking paraiso. As I'm talking about this Manila candidate for mayor in the city in Metro Manila, 3 days before the election, he engaged my professional services to be his lawyer during the canvassing of the votes before the City Board of Canvassers. Upon our agreement, he immediately made a full payment of the professional fees we agreed upon. Election came, and he lost heavily by a wide margin. But as a true gentleman, he immediately conceded defeat and congratulated his political rival. In other words, there was no need for me to represent him before the Board of Canvassers. But I had already been paid for services I had not even rendered. Again, if you are in my shoes, what would you do? The same question. What would Jesus do? If you are faithful in little things, you will be faithful in large ones. But if you are dishonest in little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. At that very moment, I felt and I knew it was my moral obligation to return the money to my client. And so, on that very day that he conceded defeat, and to his surprise, I returned to him the professional fees he paid in advance. Yes, my friends, this story does not only apply to lawyers, but it is a call to one and all that the values of honesty, integrity, and high degree of professionalism in any chosen career must always be maintained and exercised. You know, some people thought, and perhaps most of you are also thinking, that I am a lawyer who has a big law firm in Makati area with several associates and staff. Siguro sabi niyo, si Atty. Mac siguro, laki ng opisina niyan. Ang daming associates niyan. You are all wrong. I only maintain my law office at home. Sa bahay lang po ang aking office. From 1979, I started my practice up to the present. Sa bahay lang po ang aking office. Since I started my law practice, I never had a law office. I never had an associate. I never had a secretary. But all I had were good paying clients who believed in my credibility. As a one-man army, I typed my pleadings. I made my own research work.